With the wipe seemingly around the corner, I thought it would be good to do a concluding thoughts video on the wipe of patch 12.12. The main question in my mind is, was this a good wipe or was this a bad wipe? I think for a lot of players, myself included, this probably leans more towards being a bad wipe for three major reasons. One, the inclusion of Inertia, which on a low-level character with low-level stats feels like input delay, which from a first-person shooter perspective is completely unacceptable. Two, the inclusion of the map Lighthouse instead of the map Streets, with Lighthouse feeling incomplete and unoptimized. Three, the nerfing of many weapons from being viable options, and the reduction of ammo in some weapons making them unrunnable, as well as flea market restrictions on some weapons making them unsellable and difficult to obtain. So this for me is my third wipe. My first wipe was the Bitcoin wipe, where Bitcoins were worth 777... No, I'm just kidding. Bitcoins were selling between 800 and 950,000, making it approximately 1 million per Bitcoin. To me, this wipe was the height of my Tarkov experience, because the game was fresh and new to me, and it was pretty easy to make money to purchase gear, and then when you defeated an opposing player, you would actually get gear from them. The second wipe that I played was the Mutant wipe. The Mutant was just added to the game, and it was clearly the most OP weapon in the game, which they later nerfed it so that it went from being the most OP weapon in the game to simply being the best weapon in the game. I did not enjoy this wipe as much because I felt every time you defeated an enemy player, they never had any loot at all. So PvP felt very hollow and empty and disappointing in comparison to the wipe that I played previously, the Bitcoin craziness wipe. Which leads us to this wipe, which I think I will dub the Inertia wipe, because for a lot of people, they loaded into their first raids, felt the effects of Inertia, and stopped playing for 2 months. I know that was my experience. When you start the game as a low-level character with low-level stats, Inertia feels like input delay, and from an FPS game perspective, that is unacceptable. However, when you level up your character, and you level up your endurance and your strength, Inertia becomes much less of a problem. I think when this wipe happens and people's stats are reset, they're going to be remembering like, oh my gosh, Inertia did suck. And so I think it'll be like a Inertia Sucks Part 2, because I think a lot of people will have forgotten how rough it is when you're a low-level character with low-level skills. That being said, what are the lasting effects of Inertia when you have max-level endurance and max-level strength? Inertia becomes less of an issue. The only time it'll really affect you is when your backpack is full of loot and you think you're about to get into a PvP engagement. The resulting action you have to take is just throwing your backpack on the floor, which makes noise so that your opponent can hear you. So it's like you hear them, you throw your backpack on the ground, they hear you. It makes it a little bit more fair in terms of like a PvP engagement when this happens, because both players are aware of the other player's position. So that's an interesting dynamic brought on because of Inertia. However, the real negative of Inertia is it has made it so jiggle peeking is not viable. So instead of jiggle peeking, you do a lean jiggle peek, and the problem with that is currently lean peeking in the game is a little busted. Whereas if you do a left lean peek, you can actually see less when you're aimed in, and the opponent can see you when you cannot see them. And when you do a right shoulder lean peek, you can actually see more zoomed in than you would if you were just normally doing your right lean. So the consequence of this is every single time you're in a PvP engagement or fighting raiders or a boss, you're going to retreat to a position where you have a right shoulder lean. So you can take advantage of the fact that less of your model shows when you're peeking the target, because when you do a left shoulder lean, you're a lot more visible. This, to me, has made combat in the game feel very repetitive and stale. Previously, you could jiggle to the left and you could jiggle to the right, but now you basically have to retreat until you find a right shoulder position, and then you hold that angle until your opponent peeks you. This, however, might not be an issue going forward because they are putting new animations in this upcoming wipe. However, for this wipe, the story of combat has been always try to do a right shoulder lean peek. So hopefully next wipe that will be resolved and the gameplay will be a little bit more fair and balanced and more interesting and dynamic, and less of this stale, repetitive, find a corner where you can do a right shoulder lean or just don't engage. So the second big thing for people was the addition of the Lighthouse map instead of the addition of the Streets map, as well as the fact that Lighthouse did not feel finished or polished. The two big issues were several rock textures looking very, very strange when you approach them, and also, for the first time in the game that I have noticed, invisible walls that are very discouraging. What's kind of funny about this is prior to Lighthouse being added, I was explaining to a friend that the Tarkov maps are really well designed, there's no invisible walls, there's nothing like that, and then boom. As soon as I give a compliment about no invisible walls, they add Lighthouse and it has invisible walls, preventing you from going to places where it looks like you should be able to go. Another issue that players experienced with this map is its low performance. Currently, Lighthouse is not very optimized, and a lot of players on medium or lower end computers will struggle to get reasonable frame rate while playing the map. That being said, the upcoming wipe is the Lighthouse expansion, so hopefully some of the finer details will be polished and the map will be more optimized so players will have better performance while playing on it. Alright, let's talk about weapons. So one change they did this wipe, which I think is very good, is they basically added more recoil to all the weapons. I remember there was a point in time where they were saying that they weren't going to change recoil because they spent too much time on it, and then they went and changed recoil to have it so that all weapons have more recoil. This, I think, was actually a positive for the game overall because it makes it so players need a higher level of proficiency in recoil control in order to defeat another opponent. It also gives players who are ambushed an opportunity to find cover and survive and then actually have a fight instead of just dying to a laser beam. There has been several nerfs to weapons and ammos, which cumulatively make the game feel smaller because there are less weapons that are viable or usable. So starting off with the most painful one to my heart, the SA-58 has been nerfed pretty much into the realm of unusability. That is the weapon you see over here on my character. I have used every possible build that I can think of, and the only somewhat reasonable build I was able to put together is a 0 ergo 58 vertical recoil build, and you pretty much only use it with point fire, so it's a bit of a meme gun, but this is the only real viable build I was able to make for this weapon. I used to like a medium barrel build for this guy, however the medium barrel build just simply isn't good enough anymore because of the wild recoil. Another weapon that has been nerfed to the realm of barely usable is the HK-416. This thing used to be the king weapon of assault rifles in the game. Now it's not really that good. Pretty much the best build you can do for it is the 20-inch barrel build, which is this one. However, this is still not even that good when compared to an M4. The M4 also has been nerfed because of this recoil change. So M4s now are a much lower tier of a weapon than they were in previous wipes because of the recoil changes. In terms of ammos, pretty much every weapon that shoots 9mm has been removed from the game, mainly because you cannot get the ammo AP 6.3 for your 9mm weapons. So a lot of your 9mm weapons, best ammo you're going to be going for is PST ammo, which is really not what you want to be having. So because of that, 9mm have become pretty much non-existent in the game. I don't think I've seen anyone using a 9mm for a very, very long time. And this is kind of a bummer because weapons like the MPX, the Vector 9mm, and the MP5 are great weapons in the game, as well as the Glock MP9. However, these weapons are virtually not run by anybody because you cannot really get good ammo for it. Like I said, you just can't get AP 6.3. You can craft it, but when you craft it, it's only good for one raid, and assuming you don't die, you're probably not going to have enough ammo for another raid. So you're going to have to put your gear aside, so virtually no one runs 9mm anymore. That being said, 45 ACP is readily available on traders, so stuff like the Vector 45 and the UMP 45 have become very popular choices, and you'll see them very favored by players. If the 9mm AP 6.3 ammo was available from Peacekeeper, for example, I think you would see a return of 9mm to the game and people actually using them. Another weapon and caliber that has fallen out of favor is the MP7. The MP7 used to be very, very favored by players, and it shoots a very nice APSX round. However, now you can only get FMJ SX. Is that what it's called? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. FMJSX. So because of this, the MP7 has fallen out of favor with a lot of players because it's basically a worse M4. So that's a little bit about the changes of availability of certain ammos. Obviously, some ammos like M61 have become a lot harder to get, but that's not a problem because people just favor M62 or even M80 over it. However, stuff with 9mm, if AP 6.3 is not available, there's not really a good replacement ammo for it. So, and then with the MP7, just because with the MP7 it has APSX, however the replacement ammo for that is FMJSX, and that's just simply not as good when compared to other ammos in the game. Two really big ammo calibers in the game that have changed quite a bit is 5.45 for your AKs. Pretty much all 5.45 weapons have been eliminated from the game because this is an ammo that is very difficult to get the top tier of it, and also when you get the top tier of this ammo, it's not particularly good. It is effective against players, but it's not effective against scavs or NPCs, like bosses, guards, raiders, scavs. It's just not good against those targets because they have more head HP, so when you headshot a scav with Igolnik or even BS ammo, there's a chance that you won't kill them with a headshot. So 5.45 ammo has become really disliked by players and very much not used. That being said, if you are in the world of 5.45, I dived into the world of 5.45 weapons in this game. It was a very ugly trip. However, the main thing to notice is the RPK is the best in this category unless you use the waffle cone suppressor. Then you can make pretty much every weapon in this category better than the RPK if you use the waffle cone suppressor, but that thing is very expensive. So is it worth it? Probably not. And at the end of the day, even if you do choose that expense, you're still shooting 5.45 ammo, which in this wipe, it was very ineffective. Another ammo that suffers from being ineffective this wipe is the 5.56. In the past, this used to be very, very strong. However, now it's a more common occurrence to take down a scav or player and at the end of the raid see that your hit count was between 9 or 12 hits per target. So the effectiveness of 5.56 has gone down quite a bit this wipe. For me, what that translates to is I prioritize weapons that have greater spraying accuracy and a lower cyclic rate. So, for example, I believe that the Scar L is one of the best in the 5.56 category, whereas the M4 and HK are not so good, mainly because they fire too quickly and their spray is less accurate. Whereas with the Scar, I can full auto spray someone from mid to long distance, and it's relatively reasonable to control. Also, since the ammo is less effective, I want the shots to be more precise. I want to be hitting the thorax. I do not want some shots to hit the feet or the arms or the stomach. I want my shots to land directly on the thorax. Or, you know, the target's head, for example, because a headshot in this game is very devastating. So that is why when I'm talking about the 5.56 caliber, I much prefer accuracy over rounds per minute. Speaking of the Scar L, it is one of the new additions to the game this wipe, and it is a fantastic weapon. It requires minimal mods to make it very, very good, and the low rate of fire and its spray pattern combined make it one of the most accurate 5.56 weapons in the game. However, the tan version of it is still broken. It's been broken the whole entire wipe. The tan version glows in certain lightings, and you are visible from many, many miles away. Here is a screenshot of it. How is this still in the game? How is this a problem? It's been 6 months. It's been like half a year. It's still a problem. It's still in the game. Oh my gosh. Along with the Scar L, we also got the Scar H, which is one of my new most favorite weapons in the game. Have no fear, the Tan Scar H does not have this glowing problem, so if you find a Tan Scar H, you don't have to throw it in the trash bin. You can actually keep it and use it, so that's pretty cool. Hopefully next wipe they will fix the Tan Scar L, and if they don't, I will be just really, really disappointed. I can't fix this. It's been like half a year already. But yeah, no joke, this is visible from miles. For example, if you've ever gone to Lighthouse and sniped the rogues, if there's a rogue with this weapon, you will see him running around like a Christmas tree. Like, it is so painfully obvious, and as a player, you have to be aware of this, because if you're playing sneaky with a Tan Scar L and you're hiding in a bush or something, you are not playing sneaky at all. Everyone in the whole world who has looked your direction can see you. Because the way the gun glows, your position is given away the moment anybody glances towards your direction. So we talked a little bit about which ammos were hard to get and which ammos changed to being not so good, but what ammos were the best this wipe? The best ammo this wipe, I think pretty much everybody will agree. The 7.62x39 BP is the best ammo this wipe. This has been the most reliable, good, just powerful round. Mutants with BP, AKMs, AKMNs with BP. These have been what people are using as the top tier builds, top tier kits, running around Tarkov, having a wonderful time with BP ammo. The next ammo that I think was huge this wipe is M62 and also M80. M62 is obviously better, but it's more expensive and it has a tracer. Since M61s are a lot harder to get this wipe and you can get them in a lot smaller quantity, I've been running magazines with like a 20 round magazine, and my first 10 rounds are M61 and then my rest of rounds are M62. This has been a very effective way of using my M61 so that if I die in a raid or something, I don't lose just like 60 M61 for no reason. So I've been using M61 on the top of my mag and then like switching out the magazines. However, I stopped buying M61 completely because M62 is a lot cheaper and you can get a lot more of it. So the M61, the true benefit of M61 is that there's no tracer. But M62 has a tracer. It's still a very effective round, which is why the M80, I think, is also one of the best rounds this wipe, because the M80 is a worse M62, but there's no tracer. So because of this, the M62 and the M80 have been, in my opinion, some of the best rounds this wipe. So that's the 762 by 51. This is the round you're using in your SR25, your RSAS, your M1A, your SCAR H's. These are some of the best weapons in the game, and these are some of the best rounds in the game. The Mutant with BP and all the DMRs with M62, these are what top tier kits are running. These are top tier guns, top tier ammo. This is the good stuff for this wipe that everyone has been enjoying. I think lessening and limiting the use of M61 has been an overall positive to my gameplay experience, but M62 is so close to M61 that it hasn't made that big of a difference. However, the play of M62 where it does make a difference is when the person shooting at you misses. The tracers give you a better chance of identifying their position and making it so you can actually have a PvP battle instead of just getting one tapped and being like, well, that was unfortunate. So the tracer actually has a very valuable gameplay dynamic of allowing you as the person receiving fire to be able to identify where it's coming from. That issue is not there with 762 by 39 BP. BP has no tracer, so in a lot of ways I think BP is actually better than M62. In a lot of ways I think BP is actually better than M62 because the lack of a tracer doesn't give away your position. And also BP can be used with the Mutant and the AKM, AKMN, and these are full auto weapons, whereas with the M62 you can use it in the SR25, RSAS, M1A, which are semi-auto weapons, but also you can use the M62 in the SCAR H, which is full auto, and the MDR 762, which is also full auto. But here is the point. Those weapons only have 20-round magazines. BP, with the Mutant, you can put it in a 30-round magazine, or even up to a 70-something round drum. So because BP gives you 10 extra bullets per magazine, when you're comparing a 20 versus 30, in the realm of full auto guns being compared to each other, having those additional 10 shots I think is very, very valuable. And that's what makes the Mutant in a higher level. That's what puts the Mutant in a higher tier level above the MDR and the SCAR H, for instance. Just the fact that your magazines have 10 more rounds, so in full auto you still have more ammo when the other player needs to reload, you still have 10 more rounds ready to go. So this wipe has been completely dominated by 762 by 39 BP and 762 by 51 M62 and also M80. M80 has been very good this wipe because it's effective for headshots and it doesn't give a tracer. So probably the last thing we're going to talk about in this video is the change to black limb damage. So previously the way black limbs... Okay, so if you don't know, each of your limbs has a health, and like when it starts here at green and then it goes to like yellow and then orange and then red, and then when it's totally zero it becomes blacked out. That's what that means. So it's a 0 HP, so you need to perform surgery to restore it. The way this used to work is the damage to that limb would be dispersed through your whole entire character. So if you had multiple blacked limbs, what would happen is it would disperse that damage even to a limb that's 0 HP. So even a 0 HP limb would take some of the absorbed damage from getting shot in a limb that's already 0 HP. What they did to change that is now a blacked limb is no longer considered part of your health pool, so it no longer absorbs the damage that you would take from getting shot in another limb. That's also 0 HP. Also, I don't know if this is entirely new for this wipe or if this number is exactly correct, but I heard that the stomach damage modifier has been changed to be 1.5 now. So for instance, if you get shot in the stomach by a round that's 40 damage, if your stomach is blacked out, that 40 damage gets converted into 60 damage. So what that means is protecting your stomach is a lot more important now in this wipe in patch 12.12. So does that translate to the Slick, the Hex Grid, and the Tagilla armor being bad now? Well, not exactly. There's still level 6 thorax protection. It's just your thorax can be zeroed by getting shot in the stomach pretty fast. So what happened this wipe is armors that protect your stomach grew a lot more in value. My MVP armor for this wipe is this Zuck 6A. This is a level 6 armor that covers your thorax and your stomach. I got this from when I was farming Sturman. It is currently at 0.4 armor points. When I got this from Sturman's guard, it was maybe something like 72 HP durability. And I wore this thing all the way down to 7.11 HP, and now it's sitting at 0.38 HP. This is my MVP armor for the wipe. This thing ate so many shots of BP and M62, and the fact that it's still in my inventory lets you know that it took those shots and it kept me alive in that raid. So I kept it here, and yeah, it's just really cool. I was hoping that I could make it a 1 HP armor, but with how low it is, I am unable to repair it again, so it has to stay at what it is. In terms of the scav bosses this wipe, I have only really had trouble with Gluhar and Killa. So to close us out, here is Killa ruining my video of me killing all the bosses in an offline raid.
Get